Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 367. Welcome back. Hadn't done a podcast since last Friday. Really wasn't expecting to take Monday off, but I had something that came up and I had to take it off. But we're back today. We're going to get back into talking about some Jewish history. We're going to get back to talking about the Babylonian captivity in the kingdom of Judah, the first temple being destroyed, Solomon's temple being destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. Hanukkah starts at nightfall on Sunday night. On Monday is the first day of Hanukkah. Really wanted to get through the Babylonian captivity and start talking about the new temple being built, the second temple being built, and what Hanukkah is about. I hope to get to that by the end of Hanukkah, which will be a week after the start of Hanukkah, explaining what Hanukkah is about, explaining the Maccabean revolt and the Husamanian dynasty, and going into all of that history. If I hadn't taken Monday off, I would be further along, and I plan on doing a broad overview of this history with a little bit of detail. If I really went into the details of this history, it would take me forever. I'd be well into next year telling all this stuff. So I'm just going to tell what I think is important for people to understand. And, you may ask the question, well, why? Why over the past, couple of months have you been talking about Israel and talking about the Jews and telling this history? It's because this is a major part of the conversation that's going on here in the United States. This is a major part of the political conversation. People, questioning America's relationship with Israel, people questioning America's foreign policy. Is it being driven by Israel? The rise of anti-Semitism and what is being called anti-Semitism. Everything that's being called anti-Semitism is not necessarily anti-Semitism, but it's very important. This is a very important discussion. I understand this stuff, and that's why I'm doing these series of podcasts. I hope you're enjoying them, and we're going to get back into this today. We'll see how much of the history we get into today, because I want to start with some things that are going on that I've noticed. Quite frankly, the propaganda, the psychological manipulation that I see going on right now is unprecedented. And I'm really sensitive to this stuff. I have a degree in communications and sociology. I've studied propaganda. I've studied mass communications. I'm very sensitive to this stuff. And what I see going on right now is unprecedented. So I want to get back into some of this stuff, and then we'll get back into the history. But let's start with this clip. This is a clip that I've played before. This is a Jewish influencer. She is over, I think they're in Israel, meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. And you can see right here on the TV behind them, it says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu briefing with U.S. content creators. And I think they're over in Israel. They could be here in the United States, and Benjamin Netanyahu being over here meeting with these content creators. But these are influencers, content creators meeting with Netanyahu. And this is a very important question that this influencer asked Benjamin Netanyahu. We'll start with this.
Evangelicals, from all my research, evangelicals are the reason that Israel has been supported in public sphere outside of just Jews.
Evangelical Christians are the reason that Jews and Israel have been supported outside of Israel. Evangelicals are an important part of the support of Israel, is what she says. Evangelicals.
Evangelicals, from all my research, evangelicals are the reason that Israel has been supported in public sphere outside of just Jews. So with Charlie's assassination and with the kind of trajectory that we see with like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, I guess I'm curious about what's another game plan if we lose evangelical support for the state of Israel? What's our backup plan to be strong, like outside?
What's the backup plan if we start losing evangelicals is what she asked. That evangelicals have been a central part of the support of Israel outside of Israel, that evangelicals are a very important part to the support of Israel. What is the plan for Israel if we start losing evangelicals? And quite frankly, a lot of evangelicals, a lot of Christians over the past few months, since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but even after even before the assassination of Charlie Kirk, this has been a big issue since October 7th, that evangelicals evaluating their theology, evaluating their eschatology, evaluating the relationship to Israel, and if there is a theological responsibility to support Israel. A lot of evangelicals and Christians have been debating that, and she's right that the evangelicals' support of Israel has been dropping off significantly. All right. This is Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu has asked for a pardon because from the president of Israel, asked him to pardon him for the crimes and corruption that he's been being investigated for. Quite frankly, if October 7th wouldn't have happened, there's a very strong possibility that Benjamin Netanyahu would, at a minimum, have been forced to resign from being prime minister and could possibly be in jail. So he's asked for a pardon for his corruption. So this is Bibi Netanyahu, prime minister of Israel, his answer to the question, what are we going to do, if we start losing these evangelicals? What's our backup plan?
Christian influencers, okay. You said, we talked about the woke right. And he said, I call it the woke Reich. That's a brilliant.
This guy's a clown.
The woke Reich, because these people, they're not any different from the woke left. I mean, they're insane. They're loonies. But they're actually meeting on some of the things. And what we have to do is we have to secure that part of the base of our support in the United States. That is being challenged systematically. A lot of this is done with money. Money of NGOs, vast. Money of governments, vaster. Okay? We have to fight back. How do we fight back? Our influencers. I think you should also talk to them if you have a chance. To that community, they're very important.
We fight back with influence. We fight back with propaganda. We fight back with psychological operations, is what he's saying.
Secondly, we're going to have to use the tools of battle.
Tools of battle.
The weapons change over time.
The weapons.
You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well. Okay, and you can't fight with cavalry. That doesn't work very well. And you have these new things, like drones, things like that. I won't get into that. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media.
The most important weapons. So the question is, what's the backup plan if we start losing evangelical support? If we start losing Christian support for Israel, what's the backup plan? He says we have to engage in the media war. We have to engage in the new weapons of war, which is social media, influence, propaganda, psychological operations, is what he's saying.
The most important purchase that is going on right now is followers. TikTok.
TikTok. The most important purchase is TikTok. We have to get TikTok away from its Chinese ownership. That's the most important purchase. That's the weapon of war. So we need to control that weapon of war. We need to get that social media platform. TikTok is what Benjamin Netanyahu says.
Purchase that is going on right now is followers. TikTok. Number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X.
X.
That's cool.
Very good.
Yeah, very good.
And, so we have to talk to Elon. He's not an enemy. He's a friend. We should talk to him. Now, if we can get those two things, we get a lot. And I could go on other things, but that's not the point right now.
So we need to get those two things. We need to control those platforms, other media platforms. We need to engage in the propaganda war. We need to engage in the psychological operations. We need to engage in this media war using the weapons of war so we can get the evangelicals back, get the Christians back on our side, and the Christians that we're losing. And in walks pastor, or I don't know if he's a pastor, but Mike David Evans. Mike David Evans is a Christian conservative. We'll read a little bit of this Wikipedia page on Mike Evans. Mike Evans is kind of like Pastor Hagee from San Antonio, that is the founder of CUFI, Christians United for Israel. Mike Evans is one of the many evangelical Christians that are in this movement to quite frankly propagandize Christians into this eschatology, into this theology that tells them that they have to support the nation of Israel. They have to support a corrupt man like Benjamin Netanyahu and his Likud party, people like Smotrich and Ben Gvir. You have to support them. And if you don't support them, then God's not going to bless you. So Mike Evans is one of those people. Michael Evans is a American author, journalist, commentator. Evans has written books and has provided analysis and commentary on Middle East affairs. He founded and serves as the head of many political conservative Christian organizations. So this is Mike Evans here, and he is at this event. Benjamin Netanyahu and his wife, you're going to see, they're at this event as well. But I want you to listen to what Mike Evans says here.
I'm so thankful to all of you that have been here, but there's somebody that I never get to be with in an event like this, my beloved wife, Carolyn. So I want you to stand, Carolyn. Carolyn is totally selfless. And when I married her, I said, I have to be honest. There's another woman in my life. She said, what? I said, Israel. I love her so much. I have to be with her a lot. She said, honey, I will let you do that. But if she ever calls me on the phone, you are dead. We are going to train 100,000 Christian ambassadors to be ambassadors in their own country for the state of Israel.
We're going to train 100,000 Christian ambassadors. It means Christian pastors, Christian leaders. We're going to train 100,000 Christian pastors to be ambassadors for Israel in their country. We're going to train these 100,000 Christian leaders to be ambassadors for Israel, not ambassadors for Christ, not ambassadors for Christianity, but ambassadors for Israel in their country. We're going to train 100,000 Christian leaders. This is the answer to the question that this influencer is asking Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu says that we got to use the weapons of war. We got to propagandize. We got to, influence. We got to be, participate in the psychological operations that we're going to train. Mike Evans says we're going to train 100,000 Christian leaders to be ambassadors for Israel in their country, is what he says.
That, but if she ever calls me on the phone, you are dead. We are going to train 100,000 Christian ambassadors to be ambassadors in their own country for the state of Israel, to defend Israel's brand and to combat anti-Semitism.
That's branding. That's branding. You know anything about advertising and marketing? This is a branding campaign. We're going to train 100,000 ambassadors to be ambassadors, not for Jesus, not for Christianity, Now, the word evangelical means to evangelize the world, to take the message of Jesus Christ throughout the world, to evangelize people for Jesus Christ, as Jesus says, baptizing in the name, teaching and preaching is what Jesus says, that told the disciples. Yeah, teaching and preaching, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. That's not what Mike Evans says that he's going to train 100,000 Christian pastors to do. He's going to train 100,000 Christian pastors to be ambassadors in their own country for the brand of the nation of Israel. Wow.
We are going to train 100,000 Christian ambassadors to be ambassadors in their own country for the state of Israel, to defend Israel's brand and to combat anti-Semitism. Now, the beautiful part about this is we're partnering with Blackboard. Blackboard is the largest platform in the world, serving Harvard, Yale, all the major universities. The vice president of Blackboard is here. It's a $2.3 billion company. Would you stand, please? Would you give him a hand? Using adaptive learning technology. So we'll train these wonderful Christian evangelicals so that they can fulfill what I am doing for the state of Israel. Secondly, we're creating FOSS-I, an online academy to train tens of millions of evangelicals. The power of the evangelical muscle is enormous. It represents almost 1 billion people. But no one ever harnessed it. And we're doing that here. We're creating the first evangelical think tank, the first evangelical research institute, so the state of Israel will know who they are and how they can contribute to the state of Israel. We're, of course, a social network campus and much more. So that's exciting for us.
All right. So in comes this week the first tranche of the 100,000 evangelical leaders, over 1,000 pastors invited to Israel by these groups that Mike Evans has created to train them to become ambassadors for Israel, to become disciples for Israel, to be to take the message and to promote the brand of the nation of Israel. Over 100 or over 1,000 pastors. This is the first tranche. Like you just heard Mike Evans say, there's going to be 100,000 that they eventually bring over and train. But the first batch of pastors went over to Israel this week to be trained to be ambassadors for Israel. Take a listen to this clip.
And Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
It's a group of them.
A partnership between Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Friends of Zion Museum led to the unprecedented visit.
It's the first time in history the state of Israel has officially partnered with 1,000 strategic pastors to commission them as ambassadors to combat anti-Semitism and reach the youth of their generation.
Dr. Mike Evans says Israel's fight is not just on the battlefield.
Right now there's an ideological war that Israel's losing. So they need the evangelicals, they need the Zionists to fight an ideological war.
One of the goals of this gathering is to strengthen Christian support during a time of growing global anti-Semitism. They say the pulpit must speak louder than the propaganda.
So it's just, I think, an extraordinary time for pastors to go to their pulpits and to speak with clarity and with boldness and to push back on the anti-Semitism, the bigotry that is being pushed toward Jewish people and toward the people of Israel.
Wow. And I'm just blown away by this. I am blown away by this. This is another clip of Mike Evans, take a
These
listen.
pastors are going to be real ambassadors combating Jew hatred and standing with the Jewish people.
What guided you? What led you to make this happen? What was the vision?
I realized that Israel could not win an ideological war, a war of ideas. And we are with Israel, and we want to educate and activate our base to realize this is not just your battle, it's our battle also.
How do we get to all those that have this perspective on Israel? Leaders that are here right now on the ground, they're going to go back home. What do you think this will change?
Truth. What's been poisoned them is lies. Perception is reality. They're speaking up louder, and they're the minority. They're not the majority. The majority are the ones here.
So they understand, just like this creator says in the first clip that we played, that we're losing evangelicals. And what's the plan? Netanyahu, what's the plan for us if we start losing these evangelicals? What's the plan to build this support? Because evangelicals have been the major source of support for Israel. What are we going to do? I mean, and he says that the plan is to engage in propaganda war, engage in psychological operations, engage in taking over platforms like TikTok and X. And so this is what is going on here. I'm just blown away by this. I'm blown away by this. I want you to listen to what Ben Shapiro says here in this interview about Jesus, about Christians. Ben Shapiro, if you don't know who Ben Shapiro is, founder of Daily Wire. He is a Jewish conservative commentator. Very popular. And he's doing this interview with Joe Rogan. And I want you to listen to what Ben Shapiro says about Christianity. And this is what the majority of Jews around the world, the majority of Jews in Israel believe about Christianity. Now listen to what he says.
Point of view where we don't believe in the divinity of Christ. I think that there you can make an argument that the Gospels, which were written,
he was just a prophet.
No. We don't even believe he was a prophet.
What do you think?
We don't even believe that he's a prophet. At least Muslims wrongly believe Jesus was a prophet, but Benjamin Netanyahu says that we don't believe in the divinity of Jesus. We don't even believe that he's a prophet, is what Ben Shapiro says. This is what majority of Jews believe about Jesus, which is, I mean, they have the right to believe this.
There you can make an argument that the Gospels, which were written,
he was just a prophet.
No. We don't even believe he was a prophet.
What do you think he was? What do you guys think?
What do I think he was historically? I think he was a Jew who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed for his trouble. Just like
Jesus was a Jew who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and then got killed for his trouble. Now that is a ridiculous lie. That is a ridiculous lie. Jesus did not try to lead a revolt against the Romans. And that's why it's important for me to tell the story of Hanukkah and the Maccabean Wars. And we're going to get into that history because the Maccabees, they started off revolting against the Greeks, against the Hellenistic Greeks. They won the revolt against the Greeks. They founded the Husamanian dynasty, and then the Romans came, and the Romans conquered the region of Judea, and from the Maccabees, which the Maccabees inspired all of these revolts all the way to Bar Kokhba. Bar Kokhba was the last and final revolt in the first century. But all of these revolts were going on through the revolt, the Maccabean Wars, revolting against the Greeks, and then when the Romans conquered the Greeks, when they took control of the region, then there were tons of revolts against the Romans inspired by the Maccabees, all the way up to Bar Kokhba. Even in Jesus' time, when Jesus is on trial, he's on trial. After he's on trial, Pontius Pilate comes to the people during the Passover feast, and he says that every year during Passover, we release one prisoner to you. Who should we release? Should we release Barabbas? Now, Barabbas was the one who was leading a revolt against the Romans at that time. Or should we release Jesus? Jesus was not really leading a revolt. And the Jews there, they chanted and called out that release Barabbas, crucify Jesus. Now, Jesus was not leading a revolt. That is an absolute lie, what Ben Shapiro is saying, and this is what many Jews believe about Jesus. Now, wouldn't it make sense to recruit evangelical pastors to not to go into their own country and promote the brand and the message of the nation of Israel? Wouldn't it make more sense for evangelicals to train evangelical pastors to go on missions to Israel, to evangelize the people there in Israel, to evangelize people like Ben Shapiro that have this point of view about Christianity that is completely off base, that Jesus tried to lead a revolt and got killed for his trouble? Wouldn't it make sense to recruit evangelical pastors to take the true message of Jesus into Israel, to evangelize those people, rather than to train evangelical pastors to promote the brand of Israel and take the brand of Israel into their own country? It would make more sense to send missions into Israel to promote the message, the true message of Jesus, than to take evangelical pastors in Israel and train them to go and propagandize for the nation of Israel in their own countries. That would make more sense to me.
I mean, what do I think he was historically? I think he was a Jew who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed for his trouble, just like a lot of other Jews at that time who were crucified for trying to lead revolt.
Yeah, there were a lot of other Jews. There were a lot of other Jews that tried to lead revolts against the Romans. Barabbas being one. Bar Kokhba. There were tons of them, inspired by the Maccabees from the Maccabean revolt that tried to lead revolts against the Greeks and the Romans. Tons of them. Jesus was not one of them. And it would make more sense to send evangelical pastors and train them to go into Israel and to evangelize and to propagandize for Jesus than it would to train evangelical pastors in Israel to go to their own countries and propagandize for the nation of Israel.
What do I think he was historically? I think he was a Jew who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed for his trouble, just like a lot of other Jews at that time who were crucified for trying to lead revolts against the Roman and got killed for their trouble.
So he became legend in story, and it became a bigger and bigger deal as time went on.
Yeah, he had a group of followers, and then that gradually grew, and then
do you think he was resurrected?
No, that's not a Jewish belief.
Okay, I just want to check.
Yeah, no, we're not into
You're not
we're not
into
into miracle
zombies?
stories. No, that's
No?
not. No,
You don't have any miracles?
no,
in here?
not by Jesus. Right?
No?
They're ones
But
in the Old
God
Testament.
ones?
Yeah, you've got Moses splitting the sea and all that.
What do you think?
Moses split the Red Sea. Not God. Moses split the Red Sea. No, we don't have any miracles. We don't have any miracles that Jesus created. We believe in Old Testament miracles like Moses splitting the Red Sea.
By Jesus. Right?
No?
They're ones
But
in the Old
God
Testament.
ones?
Yeah, you've got Moses splitting the sea and all that.
What do you think happened there?
What do I think happened there?
Yeah.
Well, I'll go with the Maimonidean explanation that there was, it says in the Bible there was a strong east wind. So there was a naturalistic explanation for a physical.
You don't even believe the miracles of the Exodus. He doesn't even believe in that. This is Ben Shapiro. He doesn't believe in the miracles that God created through Moses and performed through Moses of the Exodus, the Passover. He don't even believe in that. It would make more sense to train pastors to go into Israel, to evangelize for Jesus, and to change the minds of the Jews who believe the things that Ben Shapiro believes, than to train evangelicals to take the brand and the message of the nation of Israel into their own countries. Now, there are missions. There are people that are going into Israel and evangelizing the Jews there in Israel for Jesus. And many of them are Jews themselves, what we call Messianic Jews. This is a video I'm getting ready to show you, is a group of Messianic Jews who do believe Jesus is the Messiah, who do believe Jesus rose from the dead, who do believe the Christian message. And there are Jews that are not like Ben Shapiro. There are Jews who we call Messianic Jews who are Christians. They are evangelical Christian Jews. And this is an interaction of a Messianic Jew in Israel having a conversation with a Jew that has the point of view that you just heard Ben Shapiro express. I want you to take a listen to how this goes.
It's a Christian YouTube channel where we promote Jewish faith in Jesus.
Well, I'm very much so against that.
Yeah, how come?
because as a people, we're against idolatry.
Yes.
How are you?
Believing in Christianity and trying to get Jews to Christianity
Yes.
is sort of spiritually destroying us.
How so?
And because you think he's God, of course, that's your opinion. He thinks he's the Messiah,
Yeah.
and I don't see it as that. The
Yeah.
Jewish people don't see it as that. So
So
bring
a lot
us
do actually.
some very small percentage,
Yeah.
and of course, there's Jews who are against Israel as well. You know, the fact that there's Jews that believe in that doesn't make it right or wrong.
Right.
But the majority of us throughout history
Right.
have rejected to be converted to Christianity or to Islam, and I think that the Jews for Jesus movement is trying to make Christianity kosher for Jews and sucking them out of where they're from and bring them to Christianity.
Even though Jews for Jesus believes that Jesus is the Jewish Messiah, so it's a natural progression.
See, like saying stuff like that is kind of like tricking to make Jews see like, oh, it's our Messiah. But it's actually the Messiah for the world that you're projecting, and you're telling Jews to feel like, oh, he's mine too.
Yeah, but Jews are part of the world.
For sure. But
Yes.
you like specifically choose language to make Jews feel comfortable with a message that is very foreign to us and very destructive to us.
What do you mean by us?
Us as Jews. You're a
We're
Jew,
Jews, yeah.
right? So I'm saying us. I'm considering you as my
Yeah,
brother.
yeah.
Even though we disagree on this
I
thing.
appreciate that.
We're still family. We're still brothers.
Absolutely, and we
And
can
I'm going to
still
be
love and
honest with you.
respect each other. Oh no, that's what I want.
I'm gonna be
That's what
honest
I
with
want.
you.
That's
Yeah.
what I want. Have you studied have you ever read the New Testament?
I've read several portions.
Okay.
I would bring all your viewers to Rav Tuvia Singer,
Yeah.
which I think is
I've
the gadol on this topic, and
Really?
he breaks down many things.
Even though he disagrees with a lot of the sages?
Which stages?
The sages, Rambam,
How does he disagree with the sages?
that he says that the Jewish people are the nation of that Isaiah prophesies, that the suffering servant is the people of Israel,
Yeah.
and that the sages, our Jewish sages, actually mention that this is talking about Messiah.
I think
far as
Mashiach is
Messiah.
a generation, not a person. I think it's the accomplishment of a
I
generation.
think
not a person.
I think Messiah is a generation, not a person, is what this guy says. Now, wouldn't it make sense to train evangelical Christian pastors to go into Israel and help this Messianic Jew spread the message of Jesus, the true message of Jesus, the Messianic message of Jesus in Israel, and to try to convert Jews into being Christians? It would make, that's what the essence of evangelicalism is to evangelize, teach, preach, baptize in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. It would make more sense to train pastors, 100,000 pastors, to go into Israel to take the message of Jesus into Israel, rather than to take 100,000 pastors to Israel to teach them to go back into their own countries and propagandize the people in their country. I mean, that's just what I think.
With a lot of the sages?
Which stages?
The sages, Rambam,
How does he disagree with the sages?
that he says that the Jewish people are the nation of that Isaiah prophesies, that the suffering servant is the people of Israel,
Yeah.
and that the sages, our Jewish sages, actually mention that this is talking about Messiah.
I think
far as
Mashiach is
Messiah.
a generation, not a person. I think it's the accomplishment of a generation,
Yeah.
not a person that's going to come and save the day. And definitely not Jesus, who passed away, Zichrono Levacha, as a fellow Jew that died,
Right.
but is not a Messiah. For
Even though he rose from the grave.
that's what you believe. There's
true.
no proof of that. I respect your right to believe
But
that.
actually, I want to talk about one of the things you said, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me,
course,
bro.
of
I
course.
really appreciate it, and I love what you do out here.
Yeah.
You said that Jewish believers in Jesus choose words to trick people.
Yes.
We're actually living out our faith.
Of course, you're living it out, but I'm saying that you guys cater your message to Jews to get them to connect to a Christian message that if it was just straight up, just follow Jesus, they would reject it.
So you don't see Christian as anything to do with Judaism, as anything to do with the Jewish people?
No, what do you mean by a Christian?
Christianity.
Someone who believes in Jesus?
Yeah.
That should not be involved with the Jewish people.
Not at all.
Someone who believes in Jesus should not be involved with the Jewish people. I'm just going to leave that right there. Someone who believes in Jesus should not be involved with the Jewish people. Well, Mike Evans says that he's training 100,000 evangelical Christian pastors. He's going to train 100, bringing over Christian pastors over to Israel to train them to propagandize for the nation of Israel. But the people in Israel say that someone who believes in Jesus should not have anything to do with the Jewish people. This is just, I'm blown away by what I'm seeing, but this is all in the Bible. This is Matthew 24, exactly. People need more discernment for what's going on. And that's why I'm talking about the Jewish history. That's why I've been talking about this history. And we're going to get back into it with the remaining time that we have today. So we've been talking about the 13 tribes, the 12 tribes of Israel, and the fact that after the reign of Solomon, that the tribes split. They split into two different kingdoms. The kingdom of Judah, which comprised the southern two tribes, the tribe of Judah and Benjamin, made up the tribe of or the kingdom of Judah, and then the northern 10 tribes made the tribe of Israel, or the kingdom of Israel was the northern 10 tribes. Northern 10 tribes, the kingdom of Israel. Southern 10 tribes, the kingdom of Judah. And we've been talking about first the Assyrian captivity, which happened around 700 BCE, and the Assyrians coming in, and they conquered the northern 10 tribes, the kingdom of Israel, scattering the northern 10 tribes. This is the beginning of the scattering of the diaspora. They're known as the lost 10 tribes. They go all over the world, and the kingdom of Judah stays intact, and the king there in Judah, Hezekiah, is able to withstand the assault from the Assyrians, and the kingdom of Judah stays intact for 100 years, around 100 years, until the Babylonian captivity happens. And the Babylonian captivity happens is when the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, comes in a 20-year siege. He takes 7,000 to 10,000 people from the kingdom of Judah and takes them captive into exile into the Babylonian region, which is present-day Iraq. And this is what is known as the Babylonian captivity. And Nebuchadnezzar destroys Solomon's temple, destroys Judah altogether. Now, we've been talking about what took place in the kingdom of Judah between the Assyrian about 100 years between the Assyrian captivity and the Babylonian captivity. And we've been talking about what took place in Judah in that 100 years that led to the Babylonian captivity. And as I've explained, both the Assyrian captivity, which scattered the northern 10 tribes, and the Babylonian captivity, which took the southern tribes into exile, they were all divine punishment for idolatry. This is what the Bible says. This is what the Torah says. This is their Jewish text, that they started worshiping other gods, that they started worshiping idols. They started performing witchcraft and necromancy and child worship, worshiping Baal and worshiping Astra, and setting up all of these idols and occultism and all of this stuff that brought anger from their God, the God of their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Bible says that he was angry at them because of their idolatry, and he allowed the Assyrians to come in and conquer the kingdom of Israel, and he allowed the Babylonians to come in and conquer Judah. It was divine punishment for their idolatry. So we've been talking about what took place in the 100 years between the Assyrian captivity and the Babylonian captivity, and the different rulers that the kingdom of Judah had, starting with Hezekiah. Hezekiah was the king of Judah when the Assyrian captivity happened. He was able to stay on the throne, and he was not destroyed when the Assyrians destroyed the kingdom of Israel. Hezekiah was a good king. Hezekiah, he tried to lead the people of Judah into the worship of Yahweh, and to only worship Yahweh as the only God that they worship, as Moses told them. He tore down all of the idols and shrines to other gods and the altars, and Hezekiah was a good king. But when Hezekiah dies, his son Manasseh comes to the throne, and Manasseh was wicked. And this is the spiritual roller coaster that the kingdom of Judah is on within the 100 years between the Assyrian captivity and the Babylonian captivity. Hezekiah comes, Hezekiah is wicked. I mean, not Hezekiah, Manasseh, after Hezekiah. Manasseh is wicked. Manasseh sets up idols to other gods. Manasseh even brings idols into the temple of Solomon and desecrates the temple of Solomon. And he sets up these idols and shrines to other gods in the temple to to the God of Yahweh. I mean, to the God of their forefathers, Yahweh, and desecrates the temple. He practices necromancy. He sacrifices his own son in a child sacrifice ceremony, worshiping Asherah, worshiping Baal. Manasseh was wicked. Manasseh tries to create this alliance with Syria, and they betray him, and they take Manasseh captive, and they put him in prison in Babylon. And then Manasseh repents, and then Manasseh is freed by the Babylonians as they start to revolt against the Assyrians. And Manasseh comes back to Israel after he repents, and he tears down all of the idols. He reconsecrates the temple. He tries to lead the people back into the worship of Yahweh and to reject the pagan gods and occultism. And this happens later in Manasseh's life, and he dies. And then after Manasseh's son Amon comes to power. And Amon is a wicked king. Amon is on the throne for 2 years, and then he's assassinated. He restores the idols that Manasseh had torn down. He leads the people back into idolatry, back into pagan and occult worship, witchcraft, and all that stuff. This is the spiritual roller coaster that Judah is on in the 100 years between the Assyrian captivity and the Babylonian captivity. After Manasseh is assassinated, his son Josiah becomes king. And Josiah, as we talked about in the last podcast, Josiah is a good king. Josiah, the Bible says that Josiah, that before or after Josiah, there was no king of Israel that loved God and loved Yahweh and devoted himself to Yahweh more than Josiah. Even David is what the Bible says, that Josiah that loved and honored God and worshiped the one true God, and with all of his mind, with his soul, with all of his strength, Josiah was a good king that led the people away from the idolatry that his grandfather and that his father had led the people into, tore down all of the idols and the shrines and the altars to other gods. He even went into the region that was formerly the kingdom of Israel, Samaria, Bethel, Dan, where these idols that Jeroboam had erected in what was formerly the kingdom of Israel. He tore down all of those idols. He killed all of the priests to Baal and to the false gods and killed them. And Josiah was a good king. Now, after Josiah actually dies in battle. After Josiah dies, I think that Jehoahaz was his brother, and Jehoahaz has a very short reign, a reign of 3 months. We'll read a little bit about Jehoahaz. Jehoahaz, which means Yahweh has held, was the 17th king of Judah and the 4th son of Josiah. So he was the 4th son of Josiah is Jehoahaz. And like I said, he had a very short reign of 3 months. And then after Jehoahaz dies, then Jehoiakim becomes the king of Judah. And Jehoiakim is the king of Judah during the Babylonian captivity. He's the king when Nebuchadnezzar comes in and starts his siege on Jerusalem. Jehoiakim was the brother of Jehoahaz. He was the second son of Josiah. So Jehoiakim becomes the king when the Babylonian captivity happens. So that is the spiritual roller coaster that the kingdom of Judah was on, with going, the idol worship and occult worship and pagan worship, all and back to Yahweh and back to pagan worship and back to Yahweh. This is the roller coaster, spiritual roller coaster that the kingdom of Judah was on within the 100 years between the Assyrian captivity and the Babylonian captivity. And the Bible says that this angered God. That actually the Bible says when you read in 2 Kings, and we read it, that what Manasseh did and the road that Manasseh put the kingdom of Judah on, even though Manasseh repented, even though later in Manasseh's life, when he comes back to Babylon, he tears down all the idols, he tries to lead the people back to Yahweh, that his sin was so great, and even though God forgave him, that his sin was so great that the path that Manasseh had put Judah on could not be turned back, and that there was going to be punishment for the kingdom of Judah because of Manasseh's wickedness. But they continue on that roller coaster through Amon, through Josiah, through Jehoaz, through Jehoiakim, and Jehoiakim is the king when the Babylonian captivity and the Babylonian siege in Judah starts. Now, there are many prophets that talk about the Babylonian captivity. Ezekiel was actually one of the people that is taken into the Babylonian exile. God, I can't believe that I'm drawing blank on Jeremiah. Jeremiah also. The Babylonian captivity and what happens to the kingdom of Judah is talked about in many areas of the Bible. But the most important figure and most important prophet that writes and that we lean on to understand the Babylonian captivity is Daniel. And Daniel is one of the captives that Nebuchadnezzar takes back to Babylon to train in the Chaldean language and in the Chaldean way of life back there. And we'll read a little bit of this. Daniel is God is my judge, is what his name means. Is the main character in the book of Daniel. According to the Hebrew Bible, Daniel was a noble Jewish youth of Jerusalem, taken into captivity by Nebuchadnezzar into Babylon, serving the king and his successors with loyalty and ability until the time of the Persian conqueror Cyrus the Great. Cyrus the Great is the one who leads the Persians into conquering the Babylonians. And then when Cyrus the Great and the Persians conquer Babylon, then that is when Cyrus allows the captives, the Jews that are in Babylon, that are there in exile, to go back to Judea to rebuild the second temple. So, it says right here, where's it at? Anyway, so Daniel is very important. We're going to talk about Daniel a lot as we get into this when we pick this up on Monday. But Daniel's not the only prophet. Ezekiel, Jeremiah, also, talk about the Babylonian captivity. Now, Jesus, I was telling you that the 24th chapter of the book of Matthew, when Jesus talks about the end times and his second coming, he even mentions Daniel in the 15th verse of the 24th chapter of the book of Matthew, which is I think that this chapter, the 24th chapter of the book of Matthew, is such a relevant and important chapter in the Bible for this time that we're living in right now. His disciples come to him and they're asking Jesus, when is these end times going to happen, and the sign of your second coming? How are we going to know? And the very first thing that Jesus says, after predicting the destruction of the second temple, Nebuchadnezzar destroys the first temple, but the Romans destroy the second temple. And Jesus is predicting here in the 24th chapter of Matthew, the destruction of the second temple. After he predicts that, the very first thing that Jesus tells them is to watch out, to beware that no man deceives you. And in this chapter, several times Jesus says that there's going to be this air of deceit, that the deceit is going to be palpable during these end times. And people are going to be trying to deceive you. False prophets were going to be trying to deceive you, is what he says in the 11th verse here. We'll start reading here at verse 9. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death and will be hated by all nations because of me. Talking to his disciples who were Jews, Jesus. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other, and many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. False prophets teaching false prophecies will appear and deceive many. Many false prophets will deceive many people. Because of the increased wickedness and love of most, the love of most will grow cold, and the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world. Throughout the whole world? Will the gospel be preached in Israel? Can we preach the gospel in Israel without getting spit on? No. And the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. And then in the 15th verses, when Jesus, he's speaking to his disciples, mentions Daniel and the abomination of desolation. So when you see standing in the holy place, the temple, standing in the holy place, the abomination that causes desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetops go down to take anything in the house. He said, when you see this happen in the holy place, the abomination of desolation. So this is spoken of by Daniel, and Jesus is quoting the prophet Daniel when he says this in Matthew. Now, what is Jesus talking about the abomination of desolation? Well, in the book of Daniel, the abomination of desolation is spoken of several times. First, in the 9th chapter of the book of Daniel, and some of this is a little cryptic. We'll go into explaining this in a future podcast, but we'll start here at the 24th verse. So, and this is what many of these prophetic teachers and dispensational teachers use to say this is pertaining to the end times. Now, there are people that believe that this is not pertaining to the end times. This is pertaining to what Antiochus Epiphanes does in the second temple, because Antiochus Epiphanes, who is the Greek ruler, Seleucid ruler, comes into the temple, and he's the one who desecrates the temple. He sacrifices a pig on the altar, and this is what leads the Maccabees to rise up. And this is what started the Maccabean Wars, is what Antiochus Epiphanes does in the 2nd century BC. And that's what starts the revolts, the Maccabean revolts, and all the revolts against the Greeks, which founded the Husamanian dynasty, which led to the revolts against the Romans. It all starts with Antiochus Epiphanes, who is the Greek ruler, going into the holy place and sacrificing a pig on the altar, desecrating the second temple, just like Manasseh had done to the first temple. But this is what Daniel says in the 9th chapter, 21st verse. 77s are decreed for your people, and your holy city is finished. Transgression is to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, and to atone for wickedness, to bring an everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision of prophecy, and to atone and to anoint the most holy place, and to anoint the most holy place. In the 25th verse, know and understand this, for the time the word goes out, and to restore and rebuild Jerusalem into the anointed one, the ruler comes, and there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. It will be rebuilt with the streets and the trenches, but in times of trouble. After the 62 sevens, the anointed one will be put to death and will have nothing. The people of the ruler who will come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, talking about the temple, and the end will come like a flood. War will continue until the end, and desolations have been decreed. He will confirm a covenant with many for 1/7, And in the middle of the 7th, he will put an end to the sacrifices and offerings. So the sacrificing and offering goes on in the temple. That's the only purpose of the temple. The only purpose of the temple is for sacrifices and offerings. And the sacrifices and offerings that go on yearly during Yom Kippur, that the anointed one is going to put an end to that, is what the prophet Daniel says. And at the temple, so if you are wondering, he's talking about the temple. It says here, and at the temple, he will set up an abomination that causes desolation until the end that is decreed and is poured out on him. So this is what Jesus is talking about when he's talking about the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel. In Matthew, understand that in Matthew, when Jesus is giving this prophecy and speaking of Daniel, the very first thing that Jesus does in this chapter is talk about how the Jews and predict that the Jews are going to destroy the second temple. And that's what Daniel is talking about. He mentions Daniel. And then in the 11th chapter of the book of Daniel, Daniel talks about the abomination of desolations again. And he says, and at the appointed time, he will evade the south again, but this time the outcome will be different from what it was before. Ships of the western coastland will oppose him and will lose heart. Then he will turn back and vent his fury against the holy covenant. He will turn and show favor to those who forsake the holy covenant. His armies and forces will rise up, talking about the anointed one, his armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple. Again, desecrate the temple fortress and abolish the daily sacrifice. So he's going to abolish the sacrifice in the temple, and they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. This is in the book of Daniel in the 11th chapter, the abomination that causes desolation. With flattery, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant, and by the people who know their God will firmly resist him. Talking about the anointed one is going to end the sacrifices in the temple and set up the abomination of desolation. Now, many people believe that this is what Antiochus Epiphanes did in the 2nd century, and when he comes in and he sacrifices the pig on the altar, desecrates the temple, which causes the Maccabean revolt. This is the 3rd time that Daniel, in the book of Daniel, that he mentions the abomination of desolations that Jesus makes reference to in Matthew. This is the 12th chapter. So the 11th verse. From that time that the daily sacrifice is abolished in the temple, and the abomination that causes desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. So from the time of the abomination of desolation, he's predicting the coming of the Messiah, is what Daniel is doing here, that it's going to be 1,290 days from the time of the abomination of desolation. So if it was Antiochus Epiphanes that we're talking about, from the time that Antiochus Epiphanes comes into the holy place and sets up and sacrifices the pig on the altar, desecrates the temple, it's going to be 1,290 days. Blessed is the one who waits for and reaches the end of the 1,335 days. So this is where Daniel is talking about the abomination of desolation. And again, Antiochus Epiphanes is the Seleucid king. We'll read a little bit about this in this Wikipedia page about Antiochus Epiphanes. He's the Greek king of the Seleucid Empire that comes into Jerusalem in the second, where the second temple is standing. He desecrates the temple. This is what Hanukkah is about. Getting ready to start celebrating Hanukkah on Sunday night. On Monday is the beginning of Hanukkah. This is what the story of Hanukkah is about. That Antiochus Epiphanes comes into Judea, and he desecrates the temple. He sacrifices a pig on the altar, and he desecrates the temple. And that's what causes the Maccabean revolt and causes the Maccabees to rise up and to challenge the Greek Empire, the Seleucid Empire. Titus Epiphanes was the king of the Seleucid Empire from 175 BC until his death in 164 BC. Notable events during Titus's reign include the near conquest of Ptolemaic Egypt, his persecution of the Jews in Judea and Samaria, and the rebellion of the Jewish Maccabees. It's the Maccabean revolt against Titus Epiphanes. I think it's hilarious how the Muslims, the Muslims are the ones who, if you see all of these artifacts where the noses are destroyed, the Muslims are the ones who do that. They destroy them, break off their noses because you're not supposed to have idols. And all of these artifacts all over the world you can see that they're destroyed by the Muslims. But that's the story of Titus Epiphanes, and that's what the Maccabean revolt is about. This is the first chapter of the book of Daniel, where he begins to talk about the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem under Jehoiakim, King Jehoiakim, and what happened with the Babylonian captivity, the Babylonian exile, the Babylonian siege, the destruction of the first temple, Solomon's temple, by Nebuchadnezzar. First chapter, first verse of the book of Daniel, it says, in the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, into his hands, the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, along with some of the articles of the temple of God. These he carried off to the temple of his own God in Babylon. So Nebuchadnezzar destroys, or basically first, because this is a 20-year siege of Nebuchadnezzar on Jerusalem. He first goes into the temple, and then he loots the temple. Nebuchadnezzar loots the temple, takes all the gold and everything, and he takes it back to Babylon. And then, so this is what Daniel is talking about here. These he carried off to the temple of his own God in Babylonia and put them in the treasure of the house of his God. So Daniel is talking about all of that. I don't have very much time. Let's just look at go into a little bit more of this video that talks about the beginning of this 20-year siege of Nebuchadnezzar in Jerusalem. Take a listen.
Destroying Jerusalem wasn't just a military objective. It was a statement of supremacy to the world. No city, no matter how well defended, could defy him without consequences. But Nebuchadnezzar was far too shrewd to attack immediately. Before using the sword, he used the mind. In 605 BC, his troops surrounded Jerusalem, but did not attack. Instead, the king made an offer that seemed generous. Give me a few noble young men to study in Babylon, and the city will remain at peace. King Jehoiakim accepted immediately. It seemed like a favorable deal, preserve the city in exchange for just a few young men. But Nebuchadnezzar had a different intention. Daniel 1:3-4 records that he ordered the capture of some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility, young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning. Among them were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah.
That's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's their names. Hananiah, Mishael, and this is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Their Hebrew names are Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The Babylonian names that they were given were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So that's what, and then Daniel as well. That's what Nebuchadnezzar does first. He gets Jehoiakim. He says that we'll leave you. Tells Jehoiakim after surrounding Jerusalem that we'll leave you alone if you just give us some of your most prominent young boys to take back to Babylon so they can study in the Chaldean religion and the Babylonian religion. And Jehoiakim agrees to that. We'll pick this back up in the next podcast. Ran out of time. But we'll pick this back up in the next podcast. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.